Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Guyana's Irfan Ali of the opposition PPP Civic sworn in as president after disputed vote. This story takes the lead in our 912th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 4th August 2020. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Former Guyanese Housing Minister Irfan Ali was sworn in as president of the newly oil-producing South American country on Sunday after he was declared winner of a disputed March 2nd election following a recount. Preliminary recount data released in June showed Ali, a member of the opposition People's Progressive Party PPP, had won the initial poll, and Washington last month called on current President David Granger to resign. The final result comes months after a consortium led by ExxonMobil Corporation began producing oil off Guyana's coast, turning the impoverished country of fewer than 800,000 people into the world's newest crude hotspot and promising to boost growth in the agriculture and mining-dependent economy. But the looming oil boom also raised the stakes of the country's ethically divided politics, with Indo-Guyanese, who primarily support the PPP, and the Afro-Guyanese, who largely support Granger's APNU-AFC coalition. There is only one future, and that future requires a united Guyana, Ali said. That future requires every Guyanese to play a part in building our country. The PPP has criticized the contract Granger's government signed with Exxon, which includes a 2% royalty and a 50% profit share after cost recovery, as too generous, but Ali has stopped short of pledging to renegotiate the terms of the deal. Exxon and Granger's allies both say the terms are comparable to other frontier oil producers. Granger declared victory days after the March vote, but the opposition said results from the largest voting district had been inflated to put Granger ahead of Ali, and the country's top court found the district had not counted votes in accordance with electoral laws. Meanwhile, the APNU and AFC coalition cannot endorse a flawed report and will continue its campaign to ensure that the votes of all Guyanese are accurately recorded, tallied and reported. The APNU-AFC coalition will challenge the declared results lawfully, peacefully and purposefully, according to Granger. The coalition asks its members, supporters and friends who have been patient throughout the campaign and a prolonged legal process in the courts to continue to conduct themselves in a lawful and peaceful manner. Over in Trinidad, where elections are due just under a week, the Prime Minister there is warning voters to be wary of anyone who is offering money for their votes in the August 10th general election, as he says it is against the law. He accused the UNC of what he called pak choy politics in one constituency, as he again criticized the opposition leader for her plan to use idle resources from the Unit Trust and NIB for her proposed infrastructure fund. TV6's Jewel Brown reports.
We in the PNM, we don't have the luxury of safe seats. We have to earn your vote. We have to earn your support because you are the country that voted out PNM 33-3.
Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley during a PNM campaign meetup in La Hocatata Paro on Friday night, as he spoke of what he called the campaign tactics of the UNC in the constituency. Dr. Rowley warned the constituents it is illegal for anyone to offer them cash for votes.
We're not coming to plant pak choy in the neighbor backyard and try to give you money to go and vote. Because what I want to say to you, anybody who coming to give you cash to go and vote, watch that person very carefully. That is a person who is somebody to watch. They either have a motive that is not in your interest, or they have a question to answer as to where you get all this money from.
He also responded to the opposition leader's explanation of her party's campaign promise for an infrastructure fund.
Right. She said that Rowley don't know what idle cash balance is. And she's not surprised because he's a rock man. But Leon should know what idle cash balance is in the accounts in the UTC that are not earning interest. Well, you know, I have an account in Royal Bank West Mall with a few US dollars in it, right? It has not been earning any interest now for years. So anytime any other passing by Royal Bank, go and take it. Because it's idle. It's idle. That is the kind of foolishness they propose as plan. Dangerous dotishness, I call that.
Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
The Prime Minister, along with the President and several religious leaders, came together to pray and to thank God for the gift of democracy. But in her address, President Paula May Weeks said the country's democracy still seems vulnerable to what transpired 30 years ago during the 1990 attempted coup by the Jamaat al-Muslimin. As such, she urged the population to pray for the country's democracy. Nisha John Mohammed has more in this TV6 report.
President Paula May Weeks said even after 30 years, the wounds of the 1990 attempted coup have not healed. Speaking during a national day of prayer to observe the 30th anniversary of the insurrection, President Weeks encouraged the population to pray for the country's democracy because, according to her, it is still at risk.
Our democracy still feels vulnerable. Many traumatized victims have not returned to their former selves, and the ripple effects of those 5 awful days keep rearing their ugly heads.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley advised the country to remain hopeful during the COVID-19 pandemic.
This is not behind us. It is with us. We still have a future to fear. We still have a future to hope.
The call to prayer has taken place 1 week before the general election on Monday, August 10th. Nisha John Mohammed, TV6 News.
Andre De Carries, head of the cannabis movement in St. Lucia, steps down. Stanley Lucian of HTS News Force reports.
For almost a decade, Andre Pancho De Carries had been a tireless advocate for the cannabis movement. But on Wednesday morning, through a voice note, he turned a new leaf. Chairman De Carries submitted his resignation with immediate effect.
I would like to take this opportunity to announce that as of today, the 29th of July 2020, I'm resigning my post as chair of the cannabis movement. The organization was formed almost a decade ago as an advocacy group pushing for cannabis law reform. On Monday, the 27th of July 2020, the cabinet decided to legalize. And as a result, my job here is now over.
De Carries believes that he had fought the good fight, with the government sending its strongest signal to date that it intends to facilitate the establishment of a cannabis industry. He thanked all those who had struggled with him through the years.
I must now focus on assisting with policy development, getting the co-op off the ground, and creating a viable cannabis industry for the people of St. Lucia. I want to thank all the people that have supported the cannabis movement over the years, and I encourage them to continue to support the movement, although the role of the movement may change slightly.
De Carries seems to have got ahead of himself in his Tuesday morning voice note, in which he said that the Cabinet of Ministers had voted for the full legalization of marijuana. The Minister for Commerce, Bradley Felix, the government's point man on marijuana, distanced himself from De Carries' statement. The Cabinet of Ministers had been far more tentative, agreeing instead to put structures in place to accommodate a new regime. De Carries wants the government to take the first step by decriminalizing marijuana by the hugely symbolic Emancipation Day, August 1st, 2020.
I encourage them to decriminalize on Emancipation Day, the 1st of August, this Saturday. the people are excited, and a move like this would show that this government is truly serious and not playing politics with the people. It makes absolutely no sense to continue arresting people during the interim, well knowing that we'll be legalized within 3 or 4 months.
Despite De Caris's unbridled optimism, the long and short of it, full legalization is still some way off. There are significant strides, though. The government has agreed to expunge the criminal record of any non-violent offender who was convicted for the possession of 30 grams or less of marijuana. Stanley Lucian for the HTS News Force.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.